Hello and welcome to a lesson on an introduction to fractions. So fractions might be a famous F word for you guys, but hopefully by the end of this you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, especially because today we aren't really going to be looking at operations, just what is a fraction and what are the different ways we can represent them. So we know, and from our last module, we spent a lot of time talking about whole numbers, and whole numbers we use to refer to whole things, entire things, or whole units. Fractions are used to refer to parts of a whole. So, for example, we could have a whole dollar, or we could have 4/4, which would be the parts of that whole dollar. Okay. So, for instance, here are some other examples. If we had, let's just say this measuring cup here. Looking at that measuring cup, if we filled it up halfway, we have half of that cup full, and so there are two equal parts of that whole cup. Okay, so when you're writing your fraction, the bottom of the fraction we call the denominator, the top of the fraction we call the numerator. So in this case, well, in any case, our numerator represents the part that we're considering, and the denominator, the 2, represents the equal parts there are total to make up the whole. Okay, so in a fraction, the top is called the numerator. And again, it represents the number of parts that we're considering. And the bottom number in the fraction is called the denominator. And it represents the number of equal parts that that whole is broken into. And then the line that's between those two numbers, we call that the fraction bar. And we saw that in our previous module that fraction bar really just represents division. Okay, so let's say we're looking at this ruler. There are 3 equal parts, so the whole thing is made of 3 equal parts. That's the denominator. Now, if we're only looking at 2 parts, if we're considering the 2 parts of that whole, that is our numerator. We're looking at this pizza. This pizza was cut into 6 equal slices. That would be the 6 equal parts for that whole. And then what we're looking at are the 5 pieces that are left. So the 5 parts, oops, I want to change to green here. The 5 parts, again, represents the top of our fraction. So the numerator is the top, and that's the parts, and the denominator, that's the bottom, and that's the equal parts to make our whole. Okay, so let's just practice writing fraction for each of the pictures that we see here. So in this first one, this circle is broken into 2 equal parts, so our denominator of our fraction would be 2, and one of those parts is shaded, so one of the 2 parts is our fraction, 1 of 2, 1/2. Okay, in the second picture we have a square that's broken into 4 equal parts. That's the bottom of the fraction, and one of those is shaded, so that picture represents 1/4. In the third picture we have 3 equal parts in the circle. One of them is shaded, so we have one part of the 3 total, or 1/3. In the fourth picture, 2 parts total. One is shaded, so again we've got a half there. And in this next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts total. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are shaded, so 6 out of 12. And this next one we have 4 parts total. One of them is shaded, so there's 1/4 again. And this next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts total. One is shaded, so that's 1/5. 1, 2, 3, 4 parts total here. 2 are shaded, so 2/4. And then this last one, 1, 2, 3, 4 parts total, and 3 are shaded. So that picture represents 3/4. Okay, so how many parts are we considering as the top? And how many equal parts are there all together is our bottom. That's our numerator and our denominator. Okay, so that's the concept of a fraction. Now there are different forms of fractions that we should be comfortable with. We have the typical form that we like to see. It's when the numerator is less than the denominator, or we have a fraction that has a value that's less than 1. We call that a proper fraction. So a proper fraction, again, that's where our numerator is smaller than our denominator, So we have a total value that's going to be less than 1 because we don't have a whole. We only have a couple of parts of the whole. That's what we call a proper fraction. And an example of a proper fraction would be here. So again, 2 of the 3 parts are being shaded. The top is less than the bottom. That fraction has a value that's less than 1. Now, if it's an improper fraction, then our numerator is greater than or equal to our denominator. So we could have a denominator that is bigger than or the same as, a numerator that is the same as or bigger than our denominator. And so our fraction has a value that's 1 or something bigger. And an example of an improper fraction is shown here, where our numerator is definitely bigger than our denominator. Okay, but the same concept. So over here we had 2 of 3 parts shaded. Here we've got these circles broken into 4 parts equally. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those all together. So 9/4 is our improper fraction. And again, that has a value that's bigger than 1. This one has a value that's less than 1. Okay, and then here in this last one, we have another version of the same picture. So these 2 pictures are actually the same. These are equal amounts, these 2, but one of them is improper. One of them is what we call a mixed number. Oops, I can't write. A mixed number, give it another color here. A mixed number is when we have a whole number and a fraction, and so just like the improper fraction again, because those are going to be equal, we have a value that's bigger than 1. So this is 2 1/4 here. And so what we do is, instead of counting up the fourths and totaling them on the top of the fraction, is we count how many wholes we have. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, those make 1 whole. And then this 1, 2, 3, 4, that makes another whole. So that's 2 wholes. That's 2 whole circles altogether. That's our whole number part. And then we just have 1 fractional part of the 4 remaining here. That's where the fractional part comes from. So the 2 1/4 is really the same thing as the 9/4. One's just a mixed number. Mixed number, where the other one is an improper fraction. Okay, so one of the first skills we need is not just to recognize the difference between these things, but we should be able to take an improper fraction and make it a mixed number. We should also be able to take a mixed number and make it an improper fraction. So we're going to go first from an improper fraction to a mixed number. So if I wanted to go from 9/4 to 2 1/4, and I didn't have the picture there, what do I do? Well, if we're starting with something, again, like 9/4, when we're reading 9/4, remember that fraction bar there is division. So that's telling us exactly what to do. What we're going to do is we're going to take our numerator and divide it by our denominator. So we're going to divide, just like the fraction bar says. Let's divide the numerator by the denominator. The quotient, the result of the division, is going to represent the whole number part of our mixed number, and the remainder from our division is going to represent the numerator of our fractional part that's left over. Okay, and the denominator of our fractional part is going to be the same denominator that we started with. So I will show you, for example, with 5/3. So if we were to divide, the 3 is our divisor, it goes outside of the box. The 5 is our dividend, it goes inside of the box. So 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 makes 3. If we subtract, we get 2, and since there's nothing to bring down, 2 is our remainder. So when I write 5/3 as a mixed number, 1 is my whole number part. How many times does it go in evenly? So there's 1. And then 2 is the remainder. That's the numerator of the fractional part that's left over, and the denominator is 3. So we have 1 as the whole number part, and then the remainder, the remainder is the numerator in our fractional part, and our denominator is the same denominator that we started with, which is 3. So 1 2/3. Okay? So when we divide in, you can also think of this as when we're dividing, we get 1 with 2 out of 3 left over. Okay? Let's try that again without me trying to muck this up with so many colors. So let's try to take this improper fraction of 30 over 7 and convert it. So we're going to divide 7 into 30. And 7 goes into 30 4 times. 4 times 7 is 28. If we subtract, we get a remainder of 2. So that means our 7 goes into 30 4 times with a remainder of 2 out of the 7 left over. Okay, so 4 2/7 is our mixed number. And let's try that again here. So we're going to divide 15 into 16. It's going to go in once. 1 times 15 is 15, so that's going to be a remainder of 1. So it goes in evenly one time with 1 out of 15 left over. Okay? Now, let's try to go in reverse. If we need to go from a mixed number to an improper fraction, which is going to be a skill that we're going to want. As we progress in algebra, we use mixed numbers less and less frequently. Improper fractions or proper fractions are preferred. So we got to be able to get out of that mixed number format eventually, okay? So if we're going to go backwards, instead of dividing, we're going to use multiplying. And what we're going to multiply is the denominator of our fraction by the whole number. So think about what's happening here. When we say we have a whole number, we have one whole there. That one whole is of the 3, or was broken into 3 parts, right? So I have 3 of those to multiply by that whole number. So we're going to multiply, and I clean up my notes here. We're going to multiply the denominator by the whole number part, and then we're going to add the numerator of that product from the first step. So it's multiply and add. And then the sum. So we multiply, we add, and then we get a sum. That sum is going to be the numerator of our improper fraction, and our denominator, again, is not going to change in this process. The denominator is going to stay the same. Okay? So when we're looking at here, this is 11 multiplied by 1 and then added to 8. So let me try to zoom in really close here. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply here. The 1 is going to be multiplied by the 11, and then we're going to add the result to 8. So if that zooming did not help. Multiply here and then add here. That's adding, that's multiplying. Okay, so we have 11 times 1 and then plus 8. And 11 times 1 plus 8 is what we end up with in our numerator for our improper fraction. Our denominator of 11 is not going to change. So 11 times 1 is 11, and 11 plus 8 is 19. So we have 19 elevenths for our improper fraction. And hopefully it makes sense, okay? If we had elevenths here, so think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say we had something broken into elevenths, okay? And then I have another one of the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. Is that 11? Whatever. Okay. So we had a whole one of those. There's 11 elevenths. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more of those. So that would be the 11 and the 8. That all together makes 19 elevenths. Okay? So we want to figure out how many of those wholes do we have. So we multiply, and then we add what we have left over to get that total that goes in our numerator. So we multiply here, add here. All right, let's try that again. So 2 and 5/7, we're going to multiply here, and then we're going to add here. So this is going to be 7 times 2 plus 5 for the numerator, and our denominator of 7 is not going to change. So this ends up being 7 times 2 is 14, and 14 plus 5 is 19, so 19 sevenths for our improper fraction. Okay, and then once more, we're going to multiply here, and we're going to add here. So this is going to be 9 times 4 plus 2 over our denominator of 9. So 9 times 4 is 36, and then 36 plus 2 is 38 over 9. And there you have it, folks. Okay, so a basic introduction to fractions and the different forms of fractions that we're going to see. Hopefully you've got enough to get going on your practice, but as always, if you need some extra help, then just reach out. All right, until next time, take care.